everyone, and welcome to 2MB Studios and to another episode of That Sounds Right. We are here tonight with three brand new contestants ready to make up answers and get points for sounding right. With me here is my co-host, Will. Will, how are you doing tonight?
Misinformation. Hello. I'm doing wonderfully. How are you?
I'm feeling fantastic. Will, you know what I just realized? This is the first episode of our second season of That Sounds Right.
That is amazing. That's so true. And you know what? That really means that we're going to turn over a new leaf. That means that every person is going to get points regardless of if they're wrong or right. What about just right?
Will, you are so funny here on That Sounds Right. It may be a new season, but it's the same old show and it's the same old me. I'll be giving points out for sounding right and nothing else. Thanks so much for being here, Will. Wonderful. We're going to invite our three contestants here onto the screen. First up, we've got Dave. Dave, hi, how are you?
Hi, Misinformation. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, excited to have you, Dave. We have Jess here with us tonight.
Hello, Misinformation. I'm here to sound right.
Oh, I'm looking forward to you sounding right, Jess. And we have Marissa here as well.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us. I'm really looking forward to your answers and looking forward to doling out some points tonight for answers that sound right to me.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and dive right in. Audience, if you have not been here before, I'm going to ask a question to our three contestants. One of our contestants will have the correct answer, and two of them will just be making stuff up. Once I hear their answers, I will be assigning points based on who I think sounds the most right with your help. The first question on our list tonight is, what is trinitite and how was it made? I might be saying that right. Let's say it one more time. What is trinitite and how was it made? Dave, I am coming to you for your answer first.
All right. So it's World War II, and the Americans are trying to figure out how to build a weapon that can win the Allies the war against the Axis. So they are testing weapons out in New Mexico at a site that's called the Trinity site. And these weapons that they're devising use nuclear power to explode with tremendous amounts of heat and energy. When they're doing that in the desert, the heat and the energy released from the bombs is literally melting the surface of the desert into glass. And it's enriching that glass with the nuclear material that is released from the nuclear bombs that they're testing. Afterwards, people decided to pick up these little fragments of glass in the desert to keep them as sort of keepsakes, these little mildly radioactive pieces of glass sand made from nuclear explosions. And that became known as trinitite.
Those pieces of glass are
pieces of glass. Yeah, it's now against the law to like own those, to go and gather them because the site is radioactive. But if you got some before it became illegal to go and gather it, you're allowed to keep it.
Really? And I have to ask, Dave, I don't usually dive right into follow-up questions, but I'm so concerned. Are these radioactive shards of glass dangerous?
Mildly. Like if you hold a Geiger counter to them, they'll sort of ping with radioactive energy, but it isn't enough to be like dangerous in terms of like oncogenic, like cancer causing.
And audience members, if you're not sure what a Geiger counter is, then you and I have something in common. Jess, we're going to go to you next. What is your answer?
Well, actually, trinitite has nothing to do with a Geiger counter. It actually is a type of rock, and it is a rock that no longer exists. It was discovered between the 1950s and the 1960s in Central Africa. And it's actually a combination of 3 different types of specialized rock. One is diamond, one is ruby, and then there's African agate. And the combination of those 3 with high pressure from rocks, obsidian around this rock produces a rock that's even more precious than any of those 3 rocks alone.
Wow. I have to say, so far, this is only our first question of the night. We have 2 very convincing answers. I'm really excited to hear what Marissa has to say. Marissa, what is trinitite?
Trinitite, it's kind of weird that y'all were like circling it. It's so wild. A combination of both, right? But really what it was, of course, in the 1600s, the Roman Catholics were trying to come up with a religious medium for conduing Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. So they were able to take a combination of ore between like gold and iron ore, and they were able to smelt it into a different kind of material. And it really was just a mixture of different metals that was kind of ornamental in value, but to them at the time represented something a little bit more holy. So you can see this in some of the churches in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I have to say, we are off to a very strong start, which means tonight is going to be very difficult for me. Now, audience, as you know, I have no idea what the correct answer to this question is. In real life, that's not show business. That's just me not knowing the answer. And 2MB Studios is right. 2MB Studios in the chat just said, everyone sounds so smart, which is the name of the game here. Now, I don't know who's correct. We had a war answer from Dave. We had a geology answer from Jess and a religion answer from Marissa. If I can really just get those down to categories.
Those are the major themes for sure.
All 3 were incredibly convincing. Okay. Other Dave Thomas is in the chat, says Jess is the smartest person I know. So Jess, you have a fan already.
Oh, Dave.
And I have to say that works in your favor because I do not know the right answers. Usually I have no idea. And the chat really sways me. I am just in general a big fan of deferring to what the chat has to say. For this first one, I am not seeing a lot of input from the chat, so I'm going to go with my gut on this. And Trinitite reminds me of the word Trinity. I know that was part of Dave's answer. Oh, gosh, Dave just got a vote in the chat. That's not who I was going to go with. I was going to, and you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns here because I already started talking. Trinitite sounds like Trinity, and I know Trinity is a church word, such as the Holy Trinity, which is, oh, more people.
I did say Trinity, New Mexico.
Come on, misinformation.
Listen, but every time I go against the chat, I'm always wrong. Dave is getting a strong showing in the chat, but I was already about to assign points for Marissa, and I'm gonna regret this, but I'm gonna.
It's funny because that's the one nobody in chat is arguing for Marissa.
No, Marissa's the only one.
It's either Jess is the smartest person I know or Dave, all lowercase.
Marissa.
Dave. Jess is the smartest person I know.
Lots of people
I don't know.
Some people like Jess. I already started talking about why I think it's Marissa, so I feel like I have to follow through. Once I ring the bell, it's over. The point is over. I'm giving that first point to Marissa.
Thank you.
Well, actually, here it was Dave. The chat box was correct on that one.
Every time I go against that, I'm wrong.
She was very convincing with the training, but ultimately Dave was correct on that.
All three had really convincing.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed by this first showing, and I have to say, this goes to show you how important your phraseology is on this game, because Marissa started her answer by saying, "You two were close. You're circling it, but here's what it really is." And I was like, "Oh my God, Marissa knows what Marissa's talking about right now." Right. And that is how easily swayed I am. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that condescension works on me. We're gonna move on to the second question in the first round. The second question in the first round is, what is significant about the date of September 12th in Russia? Okay, what is significant about the date September 12th in Russia? Jess, you are up first. What do you think about this date?
I know this. It is the September 12th in Russia is actually national holiday there. It is called Conception Day, and it was brought into practice in the early 2000s by Putin because the population of Russia was drastically declining. On Conception Day, individuals are able to take the day off of work to be at home to have sex with the hope that they will conceive, and that in 9 months, there will be a new child in Russia. And Russia actually gives away prizes to individuals who are born exactly 9 months after conception day.
Really?
Yes.
Those conception babies.
Conception babies. And this is something that's only been around for 15 years.
Imagine going to school and it's like, when is your birthday? Oh, really? That's mine. Oh, that's 2 days
Exactly.
before.
Yeah. He was giving away like refrigerators and big time stuff.
So I'm loving this, and I'm diving in already. But in the chat, other Dave Thomas says June 12th is one hell of a busy hospital day. And he makes a good point. I have to ask, Jess, do you know, this is extraneous information, but do you know if the hospitals do like any extra, like do they pad their delivery?
I am also concerned about this for all of the individuals having these children, but I do not know how Russia deals with this influx. And I'm just hoping that, as it is most of the time, babies come all around that time versus just on that date.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great answer. Marissa, I'd love to hear your answer. What do you got?
Okay, wild. I've never heard of Conception Day. That's brilliant. So, I mean, of course, if you watch The Queen's Gambit, I was a little nervous about this one because I figured a lot of people had seen the show. But of course, if you've seen it, you know that day is September 12th is, of course, a chess championship that has gone back 105 years in Russia. It's been observed every single year. It's a national holiday because it's so very, very important to Russia.
I have not seen The Queen's Gambit, so this could be very true.
Thank goodness.
Could be.
I also haven't seen The Queen's Gambit. So
Could be.
very true.
It could be. I'm trying to think in my head, does Marissa know that I haven't seen that TV show? Because that feels like a really good way to convince me. Marissa's too good at this game. We have to move on. Dave, what is your answer?
Okay, so I've been told to tell you that these two are kind of in the right area about what's been going on. Jess was very right that it's about conception, but September 12th is actually the birthday of Alexei, who was Tsar Nicholas's son. So Tsar Nicholas, you'll remember, is the last Tsar of Russia.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so he was the last sort of reigning monarch before the Russian Revolution. He was trying to bear a male heir with his wife. And he tried a bunch of different times, and he had a bunch of girls, Princess Anastasia being a famous example of that. And he was like, I just can't get it right. I just can't seem to get my Y chromosome in that egg. And then finally, he was able to. I mean, that's how it happens. But finally, he was able to. And September 12th was Alexei Romanov's birthday. Alexei being Tsar Nicholas's son, who was born with hemophilia and was a very sick child, and who unfortunately perished.
So it was the day that child was born?
It was the day that child was born, and it was supposed to be this great holiday because then Tsar Nicholas wouldn't be the last Tsar of Russia. But it turns out he wasn't very good at ruling the country, and there was sort of a popular uprising that overthrew him and famously plunged Russia into a communist regime.
Wow. Okay. These, again, 3 great answers. Jess, I have to say, you look like you're not just disagreeing, but you seem disgusted with Dave.
Jess doesn't like the idea of a Y chromosome getting into an egg.
No, I'm just, he got it. If this is true, I just want to say all those girls, they were right. They weren't wrong. So, it's his problem. That's all I'm going to say about the Tsar. But since my answer's right, I don't need to worry about that.
But remember, I said that they were close, so bear that in mind.
You did. And remember that Marissa got the first one.
Oh, yeah. And Marissa has seen The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, and I have not.
So
I haven't either.
I'm seeing in the chat that Anastasia is a myth. Dave, do you want to address these rumors?
Ooh.
Anastasia is, like, in what way is she a myth? She was a real person who existed. What happened was when Tsar Nicholas and his family were butchered by the uprising, Anastasia went missing. And so there have been many people throughout history who have claimed to be the lost princess Anastasia, which is what that movie is based on. She's not a myth. It's just what happened to her is unclear. And at this point, it's probably moot because she's dead.
Moot.
Probably moot. Moot.
Moot.
You know what? I'm going to go with the chat on this one because I went against the chat last time and I was wrong. I'm going to say the answer that sounds the most right and who will get 5 points is going to be Jess for Conception Day. I'm going to ring the bell for Conception Day, the day to take off work to have sex for the purpose of conception. I'm saying this and now I'm feeling like
you'd be right.
Oh, okay.
It's real. Putin is.
It sounds improbable, but it's right.
I'm always surprised on this show. I went with the chat, and then as I started saying back that answer, I was like,
what? What am I saying?
But it's true. Conception Day. Thank you for that piece of information, Jess. And we are on to our final question in the first round. The final question in the first round is, what is a capgras delusion. Okay, capgras. Maybe I'm saying that right. What is a capgras delusion? Interesting. Marissa, it is your answer first. What do you think?
Great. In the 1960s, there was a man who believed that he was dead. He believed that he was a ghost roaming around the Seattle, Washington. He just like wandered around, and every single interaction that he had, he would always back justify it that he believed that he was deceased. And they had all these psychological evaluations, and they could not necessarily diagnose him, but it was like the first recorded instance of it in modern psychology. And so it was based on his last name, Capgras, the Capgras delusion.
Thinking that you are dead and a ghost.
Mm-hmm. But really alive.
Very good answer. I can imagine that's a popular delusion. Maybe popular is the wrong word. Dave, what's your answer?
So I will say, so first it's Capgras, like Mardi Gras is Gras, because it's French, because the person who articulated it was French. I thought condescension was helpful. Anyway, the Capgras delusion is a belief that the people around you, a loved one, your family, have been replaced by imposters. That they are realistic duplicates of people that you know and love, but are not actually those people. And that these duplicates sometimes might mean you ill will or might have some nefarious purpose behind the replacement. Also, a fun fact, the delusion that you're dead or that parts of you are dead is the Cotard delusion, not the Capgras delusion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Fancy Man.
All right, Dave. Dave, you know what? The way you started that answer rubbed me the wrong way, but you're convincing the entire chat right now. So it looks like condescension may be helpful after all. Okay, Jess, what is the, if we are to believe Dr. Dave, the Capgras delusion?
Man, well, Dave and Marissa, it's really great to be on the show with you, but you've been circling around the answer. And so let me just go ahead and give you the answer. And it is Capgras, as in app. The Capgras delusion was actually something that came out of a space shuttle mission in 1965. There was a man named Dr. Martin Capgras who graduated from Johns Hopkins University, and he was on the flight. He was the specialized medic for the flight. And as they were going through the atmosphere, he experienced basically a delusion that no one else had ever experienced in that flight pattern. And he was violent for a period of, I think it was half an hour to 45 minutes. And it wasn't something they publicized openly, but it was a huge deal. And it was due to his oxygen intake. And they changed the amount of oxygen going into the mask as shuttle people are going up based on the effect that it had on Dr. Martin Capgras.
Wow. That was a lot of convincing details. I'm waiting to see if anyone in the chat was won over. But I'm interested in this answer. So Marissa, the delusion is that is that you are dead. That's the delusion. Dave says the delusion is that everyone you know is an imposter, called the Capgras delusion, not called imposter syndrome. That is something else.
That's a different thing. That's when you feel like you're the imposter. So it's like, I don't belong here. People are going to find out that I'm actually unqualified for what I'm doing.
And Jess, you said that it's due to low oxygen intake?
Low oxygen intake, and it's something that happens in flight on the way to space. And it was experienced by Dr. Martin Capgras.
I have to say, all these are convincing answers, like they have been all night so far. Someone in the chat says the delusion is actually believing all of these are correct, and that's a delusion I'm currently suffering from or operating under. Dave is getting a ton of support in the chat. I'm going to go with the chat again, and we're going to go with Dave on this one for Cap Gras delusion. I keep saying the S. It's like
it's just like Mardi Gras. Cap Gras.
Well, actually, here, misinformation. You are correct again.
Once again,
delusion syndrome, and it can affect pets as well.
Will, this must be a great night for you.
I am on cloud 9 right now. So many right answers. I have no idea.
So many points going to right answers in the very first round. That is the end of our first round, and we have a tie so far. Every single contestant has 5 points, so it's a 3-way tie to end our first round. Dave, how are you feeling so far?
I'm feeling good. This is really fun. I'm enjoying these answers. I feel like I'm learning. That's great. I always like this show because it feels like I just come away with a bunch of fun facts to share at parties.
Yeah, the best part about this show is that we can all really feel like we're learning something.
We're approximating gaining knowledge.
Awesome. Anything else you want to tell the audience before we continue, Dave?
Just a quick shout out to the Raspberry Boys. How's it going, everybody?
Nice. Shout out to the Raspberry Boys. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to round 2, question 1. Round 2, question 1 is, what is the Twitter bird's official name? And what's the inspiration? Okay. We're looking for the name, the official name of the Twitter bird, and what's the inspiration behind that old Twitter bird? Okay. Dave, we're coming to you first.
Sure. Very simple. The Twitter bird's official name is Cole. There's an old adage, the canary in the coal mine, and it was used to signal you would bring a canary into the coal mine, and the canary would sort of chirp and tweet. And if the canary stopped tweeting, stopped making sound, it would indicate that the coal mine had a dangerous level of carbon monoxide in the shaft that was killing the bird, because the bird is very sensitive to changes in oxygen concentration. And so the people who made Twitter wanted their site to be very active. They wanted people to be participating always. And so they wanted people to constantly be sending out tweets and tweeting. And so they named the little bird Cole in reference to that old adage that you always want the bird tweeting.
Fantastic. Dave, I think it's a great answer. Rachel is always criticizing it in the chat. Jess, what is your answer?
No, seasoned Twitter veteran Rachel, who has a show dedicated to Twitter.
And I'm going to respond to Rachel by giving the correct answer, which is the answer is stupid. And the little bird's name is Tyler. And the reason that little bird is named Tyler is that, of course, male ego wins. In this case, it was one of the creators of Twitter. There was a team of 3 men, and they're based in San Francisco. Tyler, I think his last name was Jackson, was one of the 3. And he just could not resist. He convinced his buddies to go ahead and make this little bird, which honestly, he just enjoyed birds. And they attached the name Tyler to it.
Wow. Tyler, after Tyler
Jackson.
Tyler, the creator.
Tyler, the creator of Twitter. Ego man.
Fantastic. Male ego from Jess. Thank you very much. And Marissa, what is your answer?
Jess is actually closer. One of the so the developers weren't entirely based out of San Francisco. One of the developers was based out of Boston. He was a big sports guy. He loved I can't remember the sports team because I'm not a sports lady myself. But hey, Larry Bird. He was Larry Bird. So the Twitter bird is named Larry after his sports idol Larry Bird. That's all.
Oh, that's a
Sweet.
Larry Bird was a basketball player, for those of you who don't know, and perhaps the namesake of the Twitter bird. So we have Dave says it's after Canary in the Coal Mine. Very exquisite answer. We have Jess, the male ego answer, and then we have Marissa, the sports answer. If I know one thing about Boston, it's that people love to talk about how much we love sports. So that answer, I have to say, is winning me over. I'm not seeing much interaction in the chat. I'm really finding all these answers to be very believable. But the fact that, so you know what? Scratch everything I was about to say, because Rachel just hopped into the chat and said that Rachel thinks Jess is right. Rachel, as we know, is the Twitter expert. Rachel has a show called The Joy of Posting right here on 2MB Studios. That's all about Twitter. I have to say, no matter what my thoughts were, I'm sorry, Marissa, I was about to give you points, but I have to go with the expert on this. I'm going to side with Rachel, and I'm going to give 5 points to Jess. 5 points to Jess for Tyler, the creator of Twitter.
Tyler, the creator.
Tyler, the Twitter.
We're actually here. Marissa was correct. It's Larry Bird.
Man, I was
Basketball legend, Larry Bird.
Basketball legend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
2MB Studios is now humiliating me. All the people who were.
Oh, Rachel, look at you.
Yeah. All right.
Wow,
I think I've been doing a really good job so far tonight. I'm doing better than I usually do. So let's be honest here. Jess, that sounded right. You got 5 points.
Thank you. I will take those 5 points with joy. And Marissa,
take them.
Both Marissa and Dave, fantastic answers.
Fantastic. Yeah. This is going very well.
Marissa, fantastic answer because it's the truth. That's a really cool.
A fun fact. That's a fun fact.
That is a fun fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Second question in round 2 is: in 1833, between serving in the military and becoming a lawmaker, Lincoln was an entrepreneur in what kind of business? I'm assuming this question refers to Abraham Lincoln, the president at the time. Let me read it. Well, I guess not at this time, because this was in between military and lawmaker. But let me once again read this question. In 1833, between serving in the military and becoming a lawmaker, Lincoln was an entrepreneur in what kind of business? Jess.
He worked in optometry. He, if you know Abe Lincoln, he came from Indiana. And Indiana is a place where they have great eyes. And when he came from Indiana, he served in the military and had problems seeing the people that he was serving with and attacking. And so he decided to make glasses. And he helped people with the sight.
Excellent. Thank you, Jess. Optometry is the kind of business that I'm nervous about the face you're making.
I'm not making a face.
Isn't he from Illinois?
He actually was born in Indiana.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. Fun fact.
He lived in Illinois, but he was born in Indiana, and they care about eyes.
So far, Jess seems to know the most about Lincoln. Let's go to Marissa. Marissa, what kind of business?
Lincoln ran a bar, actually. He was a bartender. He was a licensed bartender. He ran a grocery store / bar with his partner, Barry. Barry ended up being an alcoholic and drinking them out of business, which prompted him to join more political and law avenue business.
Huh. I have to say, Marissa, I love that answer because Abe Lincoln was known, I believe, for being very eloquent, and I love the trope of like the smooth talking bartender.
I also love the trope of a bartender being like, I'm gonna go to law school, you'll see, and then a bunch of people in like an old bar being like, yeah, sure, buddy, where's my old fashioned?
Yeah.
Or as they called it back then, like fashion.
Couple great tropes in there. Dave, what is your answer?
So he was a button maker. So he famously grew up in a log cabin. He grew up in a family of woodworkers, and as a hobby, he learned how to whittle. And in between serving in the military and becoming a lawmaker, a lawman or a lawmaker, he required funds to support himself. And so he had this pet project of whittling, and he thought, I could actually become quite good. And so he spent a lot of his time honing his skills, and he found that the thing that he could make that people needed the most were buttons for things like waistcoats and jackets and things like that.
Oh, Dave, that is such a cute answer.
It happens to be true.
Right. But imagining a younger Abe Lincoln being like, everybody needs buttons. I love that. I love the button maker answer. I have to say, my favorite answer of all is Marissa's. Not only because it sounds right, but it also is kind of a funny story where you've seen the show.
It's very evocative. You definitely can see it.
You'll know that I'm a sucker for a funny story. And they often end up being right on this show. Those funny little details. Everyone does need buttons, but I'm going to give 5 points to Marissa for a great story. A fun anecdote about Abe Lincoln. I can really see him behind a bar.
You're right.
Yeah.
You are on fire tonight with this information.
Well
done.
These are the kind of nights that really sustain our friendship, don't
they? Normally I'm like this close to, but this one, thank you so much.
Yeah, when we can be united in these answers that both sound right and are right, it's such a good night for us.
And again, it's very rare that it happens, so I'm savoring this.
It's so rare. I'm usually so wrong. We're going to continue on with the third question in our second round, which is, what was the Sullivan Ordinance and how many people were arrested because of it? Once again, what was the Sullivan Ordinance and how many people were arrested because of it? Marissa, I'm coming to you first.
I love this because it's like so local. So on Sullivan Street in downtown Boston, every single Sunday, they would come out, the citizens of Boston would come out in a jamboree. They'd be constantly playing a variety of different musics and stylings. But unfortunately, there was no such thing as a noise ordinance in the entire United States at that time, or in Boston. And so in order to sustain business, in order to sustain residency, the Sullivan Street Ordinance was enacted to sort of keep it down. And that's what noise ordinances across the entire United States were referred to for quite some time.
Wow.
The ordinance was a single line of law text that just said, keep it down.
We are off to such a strong start. Marissa, you know that Boston is so loud. We all know this.
About sports. About music.
About Boston. Marissa's last Boston answer ended up being correct. This is going to be a tough one to beat. Dave, what do you have to say?
So it was actually a New York ordinance. It only lasted for 2 weeks. And so one person was the only one arrested for it. It was named after Alderman Albert Sullivan, I think. And so he basically was this turn of the century misogynist who was like, you know what? Women are trying to get too many rights, and women should not be able to do the things that men do. And if a woman is seen by herself without a male counterpart, she's probably up to no good. And if she's smoking, she's definitely trouble. And so I don't want any solitary women smoking anywhere in New York City. And so in the turn of the century, in the early 1900s, he passed an ordinance that basically said no women were allowed to smoke in public. Men could smoke anywhere, anytime, but no women were allowed. And the only woman who was arrested was a woman named Kate, who was smoking in a public park. And an officer came up and was like, hey, Happy New Year, because the law was passed in January. Here's a $5 fine, which at the turn of the century was a lot of money to fine somebody. And so Kate basically said, I'm not going to pay this. And so she was arrested. And there was such a public outcry from how stupid this law was that it was repealed 2 weeks later.
I'm so sorry, Dave. Do you mean, wait, is it smoking they're smoking a cigarette, or they're
tobacco? Right, exactly. No, I mean a good-looking woman was even more dangerous if she was alone, because there the assumptions would abound.
Okay, but it's not enough to be just smoking hot. You have to be smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, if you were doing both, forget about it.
Forget about it. You are getting arrested. I have to say, I love the phrase turn of the century misogynist. That sounds like every book I was required to read in middle school.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. 2 great answers so far. Jess, what do you got for me?
Oh, well, I need to say that Marissa is once again partially correct on this, because the Sullivan Ordinance.
Why can I never be partially correct?
You're a turn of the century misogynist, okay? We can't. Okay. No, you're not. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that one more time.
It's a great title.
This Sullivan Ordinance does stem from Boston, and so Marissa, you're right on with that. Except, and I hope I get the geography right. It took place as Boston was forming as a city, and as you know, like the streets in Boston are crazy because they used to be cow paths and horse paths. Mm-hmm. There was an area of town that is now Mattapan, a farm owned by the Sullivan family, and that farm was in the way of one of those horse paths. And the farmer Sullivan, James Sullivan, he said, listen, you can't just, like, the city of Boston, whatever this is, you can't just come onto my land and keep cutting off my crops like this. And so he went to this newly formed semi-government that was happening and said, listen, this can't happen. A lot of laws around the country actually were based on the Sullivan Ordinance, because so many cities were started on areas that used to be farms. And in his case, because he had so much money and was somebody that was seen as important in the area, they actually did follow up and be sure that nobody came through on horses. I think 4 people were arrested going through. It was either horses. There was one guy who actually had a cow that went through. And as soon as that happened, folks were there and they took care of that in terms of making it stop.
Okay. Another tough question. 3 very convincing answers. I'm going to boil these down. We've got Marissa, people being too loud in Boston. Dave, women being too hot and smoking cigarettes. And Jess, people riding cows and horses and things where they should not.
Yes.
You riding them. Okay.
Bringing them through.
I have to say, I'm going to rule out Dave's answer.
No,
not because I don't like it. Not because I don't like it, but I don't find it convincing. That doesn't sound right to me. I can't believe that would be a law, and I also can't believe that if it were, that only one person would be arrested for it.
We're going to learn about petty misogyny real quick.
Petty misogyny.
I'm going to go ahead and give, everyone is supporting Dave in the chat, but I already made the call to rule his answer out. So I have to go against the chat on this one. And I have to give 5 points to Marissa, because Boston people are loud here. That sounds right to me. Sullivan Square is a place I've been to and I know exists. So that sounds right. That sounds right to me. Marissa, answer for Sullivan Ordinance, and also noise ordinance is a word that, oh, shoot.
We believe that it was turn of the century misogyny. I'm sorry, everyone, but Dave was correct on that.
I should never doubt the pettiness of misogyny.
It's so stupid, the lengths that
or the chat
will
box
go to control women.
Yeah.
Or
the chat. I know that the chat was going for Dave as well.
Nice work, Marissa.
Yeah, good one. You're hitting that Boston button.
That Boston button, I'm such a sucker for it. People are going to start to take advantage of these things that I always seem to go for. That is the end of the second round. That's true, Rachel. That is the end of the second round. Jess, how are you doing? I have to say, you're right in the middle point-wise right now. So you could pull ahead, you could fall behind. It's your game to win right now.
Everything is riding on this. Yeah, if I don't win this, I can't. I'm in a basement right now and I can't come upstairs. So I just want you to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with the audience?
I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to see you guys. I'm happy to see people and hear from people. And I'm alive and well and breathing and happy. So that's all I have to report.
Yes,
I'm in a basement and I'm alive and well and happy.
I have no shows to plug since we're still in a basement. So
you hear that, showrunners? Snap Jess up. She's the perfect Jess. There it is. All right, we're going to move on to our third and not quite final round. because of the lightning round, you fans of the show. Our first question of the third round is, what are Japanese police officers trained to do when they encounter someone drunk or disorderly? Okay, so police officers in Japan, they encounter someone drunk / and or disorderly. What are they supposed to do? What are they trained to do? Dave?
So Japanese police officers are given training before they are allowed to patrol their beat. They are given a special cocktail of drugs, antidotes to common intoxicants. And so in Japan, there was a problem at the end of World War II of people mixing alcohol with other dangerous substances, opium being a very common one, in a mix that's called laudanum. Laudanum is a distillate of alcohol and opium together. And so in order to keep somebody safe who potentially was drunk and then also maybe overdosing from opium, Japanese police officers are trained to administer these antidotes, the most common one now being called Narcan.
They still do this?
They still do this, yeah.
Wow. Dave, that was a really specific answer.
Thank you. I like to think that all of my answers have been specific.
You know what? They have. The details tonight are just beautiful. Jess, what's your answer? What are these officers trained to do?
So it's actually quite simple. And I went to Japan 2 years ago. And the thing that struck me, and the thing you will find out about Japan in general, is that they prefer to de-escalate. So in the case of Japanese police officers, if they encounter someone who's not going to be a threat to others, a threat generally to themselves, I kid you not, they will together, several officers, come to the person and wrap this futon-like device around them. It's literally like a mattress. Get them into this human burrito, get them into a vehicle, and get them back to the station where they can calm down, whether they can do a full assessment. But what's great about it is it's sort of a better case scenario in terms of policing. You'll notice in Japan that police officers do not carry guns because they have been trained to de-escalate and to use different types of methods like this to approach people.
You know, maybe this is the quarantine talking, but that sounds kind of nice.
I know.
What do they do with the mattress afterwards?
They reuse it. Hey, I mean,
I'm sure there's
more worse than a wrap-up human wrap, right? Probably.
Jess, I have to ask, did this happen to you? Did you get wrapped?
I did not get wrapped. I wish that I would have seen a wrap. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I am fascinated by this, but I was not wrapped. I was a good girl.
Glad to hear it. Let's see if Jess gets points for being a good girl. Marissa, what's your answer?
I love these creative answers. So I picked this one because it was wholesome. So Japanese police officers are trained to go in bigger numbers than are required. And this is a police policy that's dated back since the 1950s. Essentially what they do is they have a specific police officer that will take you specifically home, make sure that you get home, make sure that you get safe, and then they enter your information into a specific bureau that they have for this purpose. This bureau is entirely rehabilitative, which I thought was like really advanced over the United States method of it. And they work with you over a period of 9 months to make sure that you improve in health. I thought that was really nice.
So this sounds amazing, but this is for anyone drunk or disorderly. Like if I just one time was too disorderly, I do 9 months of training.
Well, there's a theta of escalation that has to happen before
theta of escalation.
Oh man, Marissa, these terms, they're so advanced, they're so detailed. You're making a great case. I have to say, all of these sound like they could be true.
The mattress burrito sounds like it could be true.
That's what I'm leaning towards. Absolutely.
Interesting.
So Marissa's answer is database. Jess's answer is human burrito. Dave's answer is antidotes. And I have to say, these are not mutually exclusive. All three of these could be steps in a process. Oh. So I want to recognize that you could all be right. And if I had it my way, I would give you all points right now. But I guess I do have it not my way, and I'm still not going to give you all points. So I have to give one person points, and and you know what, Dave, just because you made a snarky comment, I'm going to give it straight to the human burrito because I found that answer convincing as hell. Yay! 5 points to Jess, human burrito.
Well, actually, here,
answer.
You got it right.
I'm so happy with that.
I know, right? When I read that, I was like,
wait, so can we talk? What is a theta of escalation?
Marissa.
I've been in math brain for a little bit today. So theta just popped out.
It's not anything. It's buzzwords.
Yeah, of course.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
Great. I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So we have 8 minutes left in the show.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, great. We have 2 questions left in this round. We're going to go ahead and ask them. The second question in the third round is: a modern chef's hat or toque has 100 folds. What do these folds represent? Jess, what do these folds represent?
They represent the 100 folds in pastry. I hope I get this right. Pastry, meat, stovetop, and I think it is it's something specialty. But they're the cornerstones of culinary arts, and each of them has 25 pieces. And so you think of the hat as representing your full education.
Wow, that's a great answer. And you can't wear the hat until you...
That's right. I mean, they'll give you like a temporary hat, but that is a part of your graduation. Usually when you graduate from a culinary arts school, they'll give you the full hat with the 100. Oh. It's kind of like a mortarboard, except for chefs.
I really like that answer. Marissa, what's your answer?
Oh my God, you're so close, Jess. So every single fold,
Marissa.
Every single fold represents, it used to represent a dish that you have mastered. Not necessarily a dish that you can cook, but that you have mastered. Over time, this grew to mean, this comes standard in 100 now. And that 100, each of those 100 folds represents a dish that you can make with, a way that you can prepare eggs.
Eggs?
Yes.
Eggs?
Colloquially now, each of the 100 folds represents a way that you can cook an egg or prepare an egg. Mm-hmm.
I can't even think of that many ways to cook an egg. Dave, what's your answer?
Well, it's buttons. No. So French chefs in culinary school would be responsible for washing their own clothes. And so when you would wash your apron, you wash your apron about once a week to get all of the stuff that you were cooking off of that, so you could have like a nice white apron at the start of the week. And every time you end the week, you wash your apron, you hang it on the line to dry, and it's sort of there folded up on the line. And so 100 folds is meant to represent the number of weeks it took for you to graduate culinary school, which is the 100 times that you folded your apron over the line to dry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Dave's answer is folding the apron. Jess's answer is folding pastries and meats. And Marissa's answer is ways to cook an egg.
I just like that Marissa's like, I'm just imagining somebody like folding a steak, like a little steak burrito. And I'm just like, all of Jess's answers are now coalescing around this idea of just folding things.
I'm hungry also, so.
There's not a lot of food in the basement. Nope. Please vote for me so I can get out.
I I have to give these 5 points. I have to go with Marissa again. 100 ways to cook an egg. That is sounds like the exact kind of like pretentious thing they would actually make.
Yeah.
Out of a toque. Am I saying that right, Dave? A toque.
We'll actually hear misinformation. You are right again.
Wow.
Wow, you're nailing this.
Wow, we should keep track because I think this might be my best show ever in terms of getting answers correct. But regardless of whether or not you were right, Marissa, you get 5 points for sounding right, and you were right. So that's just icing on the egg. We have one more question left in our third round, and it is: after losing their baby teeth, what do Greek children do with them? After they lose their baby teeth, what do Greek children do with them? Marissa, you are up first. What is your answer?
They arrange them on their bedstand to make little to represent crap.
They arrange
Teeth droppings, crap, you know.
No, sorry. No, they arrange the teeth of their bedstand. It's an old tradition in Greek culture to arrange it on their bedstand, and then their parents come and collect it. That's where the origin of the tooth fairy is.
From the Greek. Could be true. The Greeks invented so much. Dave, what is your answer?
So it's actually a little bit more visceral than that. So there's a famous Greek mythology of a god's manhood, his penis being cut off and cast into the sea. And then when his penis was thrown into the sea, a goddess emerged. The goddess of, I can't remember which one it is.
Venus.
Which one? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. The point is that Greek children throw their teeth in the sea in the hopes that it will grant them good fortune, in the same way that it was sort of the birth of a goddess.
That answer, I have to say, Dave, started out very visceral, and then it got very cute.
Like most myths, actually.
Most myths. Jess, what is your answer?
Misinformation. It is not about laying your teeth out on your bedstand or the goddess of penis. It is. It's simple. There is no tooth fairy in Greece, and the tradition is very simple, actually. Kids, after losing their baby teeth, go outside and they throw them on the roofs of their homes. And this is said to bring good fortune to the family and to those that live in the home. And also it's a way of wishing for your permanent teeth to come in healthy. Very simple, but no stuff underneath bed, pillows, or just straight up throw it on the roof.
Like that pizza in that episode of Breaking Bad.
I love all three of these answers once again. I'm going to go with Dave's answer. The Greek myth, that's an airtight answer about Greece. I'm going to give Dave those 5 points. Well deserved. Whenever anyone says anything about penis on this show, it usually ends up being correct. All right.
Actually, this time we'll actually hear that's wrong. Jess was right. It had nothing to do with penises. No penises whatsoever in this one. This is very wholesome.
Wow.
I thought you were a feminist.
That was like
I didn't write
on
these.
the show that the penis answer hasn't been right. Here's how we're lining up, everybody. We have 3 minutes left. We have Dave coming in at 10 points, Jess coming in at 15 points, Marissa in the lead with 20 points, but it is anybody's game because we have a bonus lightning round, and audience members, you get to assign the points. We're going to go super quick, 2 minutes this lightning round, very quick answers. And audience, if you want to assign someone point, just put their name in the chat if you think their answer sounds right. What's that first lightning round question? All right, Marissa, what type of cake is this?
German chocolate.
What type of cake is this, Jess?
Yeah, German chocolate.
Dave, what kind of cake is this?
Coconut pecan daisy.
Will, actually, what kind of cake is this?
German chocolate.
Beautiful. Next question.
Beautiful.
2 right answers. Marissa, what is this?
That is a tree squash.
Jess, what is this?
Phallic banana.
Dave, what is this?
Those are cashews.
Will, what is this actually?
It's cashew with a cashew apple attached.
Wow, very nice. Next question. Marissa, who is this?
That is David.
Yes, who is this?
Grandpa Roger.
Dave, who is this?
That's Abe Lincoln with one of his shoulder buttons.
Will, actually, what is this?
That is Brutus.
It's Brutus. Come on. One more lightning round question. Marissa, who is this?
That is the Michelin Man who lost weight.
Who is this?
This is the Ohio State Buckeye, the Ohio State Buckeye mascot.
Dave, who is this?
Yeah, it's the Ohio State Buckeye. That's true.
And Will, who is this actually?
They're correct. His name is also Brutus.
Wow. Brutus again. Glorious lightning round. Thank you so much. Marissa, I'm going to check in with you. You were in the lead before these bonus round points. I'm going to add them up now. What do you like to tell the audience?
Great. So definitely check out the show immediately following this. Also at 9 o'clock, I'm on a show called Golden Age Radio, and please check that out.
Thank you. Will, any closing statements for tonight?
Thank you all for being on the show. You are all amazing. Dave, you got the the fewest amount of right answers throughout the regular portion of the game, so you are my winner, and I hope that means something to you.
It does. That actually does mean a lot. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm still going to put on my resume, Will's winner.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I got him. We were so close to an enormous upset on our hands because of how many bonus points Dave got this round. But the final score is going to put Jess, I'm sorry, you in last place now with 19 points. Dave, you are coming out just in second place with 22 points. And Marissa, you are going to finish up with 24 points.
Oh my God.
The proud new owner of a diploma from 2MB University. Hang it on your wall, put it on your resume. You are a graduate from our fine establishment. And thank you, Will, actually, for all of our correct answers tonight, and audience for tuning in. I had so much fun. Stay tuned for Poof coming up at 8. And join us next week on That Sounds Right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.